Joel Klatt of Fox Sports joining me here live on the Rich Eisen Show from Colorado, where the Peyton Manning presser's about to go down. What's the I guess the mood in the state about this reaction to this announcement, Joel?
Well, I think it's what everyone was expecting. You know, what's interesting, Rich, is that, you know, this Denver fan base, they have grown. Well, I mean, to put it lightly, they're spoiled. I mean, Denver's had 2 or 3 bad seasons in 30 years, and you know, so they're constantly thinking that the Denver Broncos are always going to be great. And there was a sector of the fan base that, you know, wanted Brock Osweiler to play in the playoffs. And so while this is celebratory and happy, and everyone's going to, you know, put on the good face, there's a large sector of Denver fans that are happy that the Denver Broncos can move on and build a future with Osweiler, or at least they hope.
Yeah, well, Osweiler, it's rumored, well, not rumored, reported, Ian Rappaport of the NFL Media Group, my colleague, saying there's a 3-year, $45 million deal on the table for Brock Osweiler right now, which just goes...
It would be crazy not to take that. I mean, not to get off topic.
No, we're on topic, Joe.
Give me a break. Like, the local, I mean, look at where you're at. It's a great town. Like I said, 3 bad seasons in, 30 years? I mean, I grew up there. I know exactly what Denver's all about as far as commitment to excellence. You've got a historically great defense, and they're giving you, you know, what is that, $15 million a year? I mean, that's a no-brainer. Why in the world would you even listen to offers from Houston? I guess you owe it to yourself, but if he signs somewhere else, I think you question his judgment.
Well, there could be an offer from Los Angeles. There could be an offer from Cleveland coming. But I'm with you. I mean, if you've got Von Miller sitting right there, and you know he's going to probably be there for a very, very long time, Demaryius Thomas under contract, Emmanuel Sanders, a coach that's definitely not going anywhere. So you know the offense that you're running right now is the offense you're going to be running for as long as Gary Kubiak wants the gig and as long as John Elway is in the front office. I'm with you. I mean, why would you want to go anywhere else? You think about it.
I wouldn't want to go anywhere else. It's a great situation. We rate quarterbacks on winning, not on your contracts. This is not baseball. You can't be Albert Pujols and everyone thinks you're a great player even though you're getting overpaid for the Los Angeles Angels. You have to produce as far as wins and losses. We're about to run Peyton Manning out of town. He got benched. You know, I mean, you have to win. You have to produce. So you might as well put yourself in the greatest possible situation to do that. And then the money will take care of itself down the road.
Fox Sports' Joel Klatt joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. So, okay, so the number one overall quarterback may be a kid that nobody's ever seen play outside of the state of North Dakota or whoever has been watching North Dakota State football for the past few years. Tell me something about Carson Wentz that you against Jared Goff. Do you think that Wentz is number one over Goff? What do you say, Joel?
I do, because I believe that Wentz is not as tied to fit as I think Goff is. Because Goff is a little bit slight, you know, his hand size, he's not quite as sturdy. He's not quite as sturdy a mover in the pocket. He's a beautiful player and a wonderful thrower of the football. I think he's going to have success in the league, but I think that he's more tied to fit than Wentz is. I think Wentz can go to a lot of places and succeed, where I don't know if that's the case with Jared Goff. Wentz, a lot of people are going to point at his school and the fact that he didn't play a lot as a negative, but there are so many examples of guys that didn't play a lot and still succeeded in the NFL. There are guys that went to smaller schools and have succeeded at the top level of the NFL. Yeah, I'm not, you know, saying anything you don't know, but here's what you might not know is that, and this is, I'm a decent example of this. Not that I was the caliber of Wentz by any stretch, but quarterbacking at times and your ability to be the starter is circumstantial. For instance, you know, he had an injury in high school to the point where in Bismarck, North Dakota, he only started for 1 season. I played for my father in high school, and my dad was an ex-Marine, and he was, you know, a little bit of a hard-nosed type of guy. And he said, "You will not be my starting quarterback over a kid older than you." He's like, "I'm just not going to deal with that. I'm not going to deal with them from the parents. You can play some other position until there's no other quarterback, and then I'll let you play." And so I only played as a senior in high school. Well, Wentz only played as a senior in high school. Let me tell you what that does. All the scholarships to Division I schools are gone. They're gone. Whether they like you or not, whether they think you're a good recruit or not, your scholarship is taken. You have to go to a smaller school. I took 3 trips out of high school for football. North Dakota State, South Dakota State, and Northern Colorado.
Yes.
Decided to play minor league baseball instead. So that's the reason he went to North Dakota State. I don't think we should knock him for his locale.
Sure.
Rather just evaluate him for the talent that he is.
Oh, look, I mean, and I know Mayock compared him to Luck. He looked like him, too. I mean, if you just see the way he, in pads and the helmet and the way he would just carry it, just his stature. And then his measurables at the combine were very similar to Andrew Luck's. Now, obviously, we have to see what Wentz does once he gets out there on the field. I did notice, though, for your top draft board, you've got number 2 after Tunsil. You've got Jalen Ramsey, who I thought had the best combine of anybody that I saw. I mean, he looked all the part of a shutdown corner and a difference maker on the back end, to me, Joel.
Here's what I love about Ramsey, Rich, is that I think he's a hybrid defender because I think he can succeed at the top level at a number of different positions, whether it's corner, slot corner, safety, nickel, and I think that's what you need in today's NFL to succeed. Look at what the Denver Broncos were able to do. They were able to put a lot of guys on the football field that could succeed in different types of situations, rushing the passer, covering in space, playing man, playing zone. They did so many things well, and that's why a guy like Ramsey is so valuable because he can do that. It's not a real shock that he was such a great performer at the combine. He's got that track background. He's got that explosiveness. Going into the week, I thought, boy, if this guy doesn't impress, there's going to be a huge red flag, but he did nothing but impress everyone, like you said. I think he is an easy pick. And if I'm a team like San Diego at 3 with their problems roster-wise, have to replace Weddle, I don't understand how Ramsey would fall past number 3 in the draft. That's how firmly I believe he's going to be successful in the league.
Yeah, the comp we used was Patrick Peterson, and he looked just like him. I mean, he really did. And you see what Patrick Peterson's been able to do in Arizona. The guy that fascinates me is Elliott, Joel, because I know how we devalue the running back position in this league until you get somebody like Le'Veon Bell or Adrian Peterson, until you get somebody like that who can take over a game, who can close out a game, who can absolutely be the difference between being a playoff contender and a Super Bowl contender or champion. Where would you take Elliott in this draft?
That's a great question. I think he's good enough to be selected anywhere, probably, from like 7 to 15. Now, that valuation process is always a bit difficult. Here's the hard part for Ohio State. Now, in my top 50 players available, I have 9 Buckeyes. 9. So the difficult part is not all 9 of them are probably top 50 players because they were getting a bump from the players around them. Some are independent contributors, some are dependent contributors, and you've got to weed out which ones are which. I think Elliott is one of the independent contributors. You look at all the guys that had success, in particular on their run to a national title a couple of years ago. He was the catalyst for that. 200 yards in 3 straight games. The offensive line blocked fairly well, but he was running with power, with speed. He took off that long run against Alabama. He gave Cardell Jones time. Cardell Jones then had Devin Smith to throw down the field. So all of a sudden you've got a guy like Cardell Jones. Everyone was hyped about him. He's a strictly dependent player on those around him. If he didn't have the great players, he wouldn't have had a successful 3-game run, whereas Elliott, I think, would have succeeded regardless of who was in the game at quarterback, regardless of who was playing wide receiver. That's why I think he's one of the most valuable Buckeyes, and that's why I think he should be selected probably in the first 12 picks. I think, what is it, New York has the 10th pick? I think that would be an interesting
for the
spot
Giants.
For him, in particular, in that market.
I mean, think about that, man. You've got Eli with a closing window, because he's getting up there, believe it or not, on a day that Peyton Manning retires. And you've got Beckham out there wide, and you could put Ezekiel Elliott back there, and that would extend the life of Peyton Manning big time. And he'd be a star in New York. I mean, come on, Joel. That would be a great spot for him. Certainly, if Dallas is sitting there at 4, and I know you don't take running backs top 5, but if they think he could be the guy to do for Romo what I just described for Eli with Dez out there, why wouldn't they go there too?
I tend to agree with you. There's a lot of aging quarterbacks that are very successful in this league that are Super Bowl caliber that just need that extra help. I think and that's why the Manning-Elway relationship was so perfect, because Peyton, I think that John Elway sold Peyton that John knew exactly what he needed late in his career because John had it with Terrell Davis. Now, he didn't provide him necessarily that one player like Terrell Davis, who was a league MVP rush for 2,000 yards late in Elway's career. But what he did do was he built as good of a roster as there is in the entire league around him. And you've got some of these aging quarterbacks. I truly believe that Romo, Eli Manning, even a guy like Phillip Rivers, if you started giving them some help and building the roster around them, ask them to have a team-friendly contract, which is up to them, obviously, but you ask them to do that, that's kind of a recipe for success. What's going to be hard for Dallas is I think Joey Bosa is going to be sitting there at number 4. I think he's going to be available, and that's going to be a very tough pick to pass up, in particular with what their front 7 looks like right now.
Joel, appreciate the time. The poll question, ask it of Joel Klatt before we let him go, Chris Brockman at richeisenshow.com.
All right, Joel, who's the greatest quarterback of all time? Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Joe Montana, John Elway, Terry Bradshaw, Brett Favre.
Okay, I grew up with Elway, guys, so I've got to put him up there, and then I'll put Brady right there. I think Brady will leave the game as the greatest to ever play.
Thank you very much, Joel. Appreciate it. We'll have you back on. Let me know when you're in. Let me know when you're in LA. We'd love to have you here in person, Joel.
You got it. I'll talk to you.
That's Joel Klatt of Fox Sports.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.